Edgar Allan Poe's The Black Cat might be his most grisly short story, and certainly his most shocking. It features a narrator with an acute drinking problem and a professed hatred for all of humanity, and for animals too, apparently. One wonders if Poe did not somewhat see himself in this character. Again, I couldn't help but notice that Poe himself had a very bad drinking problem, and he attributes this same malady to his narrator, and in fact refers to alcoholism as, quote, a disease. So perhaps it shows that Edgar Allan Poe intimately knew the evils of excess drinking, and that's the way that Edgar Allan Poe drank, was to excess. He was the kind of drinker where you have one and you just can't stop, and then you black out and wake up and don't know what happened kind of drinking. So Poe knew the evils of excess drinking, but again, never committed anything remotely like this narrator does in The Black Cat. But the misanthropy of the narrator, his declared hatred of all humanity, again, Poe's own reputation was to be extremely a disagreeable fellow. Brilliant, but very difficult to get along with. So when I hear Poe describe his narrator as such, I think it is kind of, if not projection, just borrowing some elements, at least, of his own psyche. A funny thing about The Black Cat is it begins like so many of Poe's short stories begin with the narrator saying, hey, you might think I'm crazy, but I'm not crazy, okay? So just to be clear, I'm not crazy. And of course, when someone starts explaining that, you tend to think that they are insane, perhaps. And this is why some people regard this story as an unreliable narrator. The narrator recounts that he used to be of a genial nature and he loves animals, but somehow, perhaps the effects of alcohol and other mental problems, he grows more and more malevolent, and he says he, quote, even offered personal violence to his wife. I love that Victorian turn of phrase, offered personal violence. Now, a lot of people see The Black Cat as a story with a moral, so he has a guilty conscience and he gives himself up, and this is some type of message of morality and the triumph of good and evil being punished. I never really read it that way. Poe quite explicitly states in the beginning of the story this theme of the perverse, that we do things that we know we should not do. And kind of like the Telltale Heart, how he kills the old man, the narrator, for no good reason, just kind of bizarre, invented reasons. And the narrator's actions in The Black Cat are similarly inexplicable, similarly without cause or provocation. So this theme of perverseness is the moral of the tale, which is kind of like there's no moral, it's amoral. Rather, the violence and the cruelty in The Black Cat is just an aesthetic quality that is common for Gothic literature, and Poe's Gothic literature in particular. So the narrator poses the question, quote, have we not a perpetual inclination in the teeth of our best judgment to violate that which is law merely because we understand it to be such? Kind of like kids or adolescents. They find out, what am I not supposed to do? That's what they want to do. So it's a perverse element of human nature, taken to an extreme in this particular short story, in which first the narrator plucks out the eye of his cat Pluto because he seizes the cat bites him on the hand, and that's just his reflex reaction, is to gouge the cat's eye out. But then the problem is that the cat continues to exist with this kind of void where his eye was, which perhaps made the narrator feel incriminated just by the presence of this cat, and perhaps that's why he later hangs the cat, which is the next act of cruelty and violence. The narrator describes how he becomes irritated with the cat, irritated by everyone and everything around him, including his animals. I interpret this as a feeling of self-hatred that the narrator has, which he projects on everyone and everything around him. And that's really the only explanation for his behavior. After he hangs his cat, after his house burns down, you can look at that as karma. He finds a new black cat, which is suspiciously similar to Pluto, except it has a white patch of fur on its chest. So this seems like a red flag. The reader is saying, do not adopt this cat. This seems like trouble. It's a black cat. That's red flag number 1. And red flag number 2 is it's similar to the cat you killed, so Maybe he wanted to redeem himself by taking on a new cat and treating it well, but things took a very different direction. The climax of this short story is, I've read this short story probably 3 or 4 times, I don't remember, but it's been a minute. When I last reread it, I didn't necessarily remember the chain of events. So the narrator is trying to seize the new cat. His wife gets in his way, and in a rage, he murders his wife with the axe. Not that he was planning on it, but he just completely lost control. Spoiler, sorry about that. What a shocking event. And even though it's literature, we have multimedia, we have every kind of technology, but still just reading the written word on the page of that plot twist still is shocking. It has this element of horror. You couldn't really reproduce that, in a film or just passively watching it, but just the very eloquent writing of Poe and his very dark Gothic sensibility really comes together in The Black Cat. So, as I say, it's one of the most disturbing Poe's short stories. Again, similar to The Telltale Heart, when the police come to investigate, the narrator has hid the body in a wall. He gives himself away in what he describes as an act of bravado, and others comment that he felt guilty and he wanted to give himself away. But I just see it as he says, a false show of bravado and a perverse desire just to test the limits and do what you're not supposed to do, which was ultimately his undoing. Likewise, the Telltale Heart gave himself away, and the body that he hid. These unreliable narrators have a tough time keeping their secrets. My name is Michael McCara. Thank you so much for watching. Follow me on Twitter. Visit my blog, michaelmccarablog.com. A lot of literary content there. Like this video if you liked it, and do subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it.
I've only heard what love can do, and now I'm getting love from you. Make your vows, make